Often it takes only moments or seconds to change one or more lives abruptly. Seconds in which things happen that remain hidden. The life of the family of little Mikelle Biggs is turned upside down in just 90 seconds. Because in this period of time, the girl disappears on her own doorstep in the middle of a quiet neighborhood. Mikelle lives with her family in Arizona. In 1999, she's 11 years old and goes to school in her hometown of Mesa. She's described as bright and clever. Like so many children her age, Mikelle is crazy about Disney. She dreams of working at one of the popular theme parks, surrounded by her favorite Disney characters all day long. Unfortunately, that will never happen. On January 2nd, 1999, the girl disappears without a trace. The day begins like so many others. Mikelle and her younger sister Kimba are playing outside together. Kimba didn't really feel like going outside that afternoon. She was busy in the house with her Barbie dolls, which she had received for Christmas the previous week. But Mikelle really wanted to go out on the street and do a few laps on Kimba's bike. Her younger sister let herself be persuaded.
The lighting right now, like it's very blue. That is one of those things I remember very distinctly from that night. I was standing over there in that vicinity, and she was right here, and she would do like a smaller circle and then like a bigger circle, and her blonde hair in the sunset was very like flowing behind her. I didn't realize how precious that moment was, and it is very much like a movie scene.
The sisters are spending the afternoon together on the street in front of their house. The girls are outside with the family dog, taking turns riding Kimba's bike up and down the street. They are eagerly waiting for someone. The ice cream truck should be passing by soon. The mobile ice cream parlor regularly supplies the residents around Gilbert Road with fresh ice cream. For the two girls, this should have been the highlight of the day. Kimba and Mikelle hear the ice cream truck's bells while they are playing. It sounds as if the truck is on a parallel street and is about to arrive. Their mother, Tracy, has given Mikelle some money so that the two daughters can choose an ice cream. Other children who live nearby come outside and wait impatiently. But it gets later and later. The long-awaited ice cream truck is just not coming. The chance that it will turn onto Gilbert Road after all is getting slimmer and slimmer. One by one, the neighborhood children disappear into their houses. But Mikelle remains persistent. She's quite sure that the ice cream truck will turn up any minute. She insists on being patient and waiting a little longer. Mikelle's younger sister Kimba starts to feel cold. At the beginning of January, even in the usually warm state of Arizona, the temperatures are approaching freezing. Kimba tells Mikelle that she's going to go into the house to get a jacket. Mikelle waits outside for her little sister. She doesn't want to take her eyes off the street for fear of missing the arrival of the ice cream truck. In the meantime, Mikelle grabs Kimba's bike for another ride around Gilbert Road. Kimba is only in the house for a moment. It didn't take her more than 90 seconds to get her jacket and run back out. Her mother asked her to get Mikelle inside. It is getting late, and dinner will be ready soon. But when Kimba returns to the street, Mikelle is gone. All Kimba sees is the change for the ice cream truck and the bicycle lying on the street. Its tires are still turning, as if Mikelle had just jumped off, or as if someone had just knocked her off the bike moments ago.
There's a reason they say Mikelle Biggs vanished into thin air, because it looks like she did.
The sisters are spending the afternoon together on the street in front of their house. The girls are outside with the family dog, taking turns riding Kimba's bike up and down the street. They are eagerly waiting for someone. The ice cream truck should be passing by soon. The mobile ice cream parlor regularly supplies the residents around Gilbert Road with fresh ice cream. For the two girls, this should have been the highlight of the day. Kimba and Mikelle hear the ice cream truck's bells while they are playing. It sounds as if the truck is on a parallel street and is about to arrive. Their mother, Tracy, has given Mikelle some money so that the two daughters can choose an ice cream. Other children who live nearby come outside and wait impatiently. But it gets later and later. The long-awaited ice cream truck is just not coming. The chance that it will turn onto Gilbert Road after all is getting slimmer and slimmer. One by one, the neighborhood children disappear into their houses. But Mikelle remains persistent. She's quite sure that the ice cream truck will turn up any minute. She insists on being patient and waiting a little longer. Mikelle's younger sister, Kimba, starts to feel cold. At the beginning of January, even in the usually warm state of Arizona, the temperatures are approaching freezing. Kimba tells Mikelle that she's going to go into the house to get a jacket. Mikelle waits outside for her little sister. She doesn't want to take her eyes off the street for fear of missing the arrival of the ice cream truck. In the meantime, Mikelle grabs Kimba's bike for another ride around Gilbert Road. Kimba is only in the house for a moment. It didn't take her more than 90 seconds to get her jacket and run back out. Her mother asked her to get Mikelle inside. It is getting late, and dinner will be ready soon. But when Kimba returns to the street, Mikelle is gone. All Kimba sees is the change for the ice cream truck and the bicycle lying on the street. Its tires are still turning, as if Mikelle had just jumped off, or as if someone had just knocked her off the bike moments ago.
I mean, it took 30 minutes for 1,000 people to be looking for her. And there was every news station and multiple police cars and people organizing search parties.
The police are quickly called in. And not even an hour after Mikelle's disappearance, a helicopter is already searching for the girl. The police drive through the surrounding streets with loudspeakers, asking for help in the search for the little girl. In the days that followed, investigators went door to door, asking residents for information. Volunteers printed flyers that were distributed throughout Mesa. The outpouring of sympathy in Arizona was overwhelming. Although they didn't know the Biggs family, strangers came to their house almost every day, bringing them cooked meals or offering to help with the search. So many cooked meals are brought by that the Biggs neighbors have to freeze some of them at their own homes because the family's refrigerator is bursting at the seams. But as touching as the help from the residents of Mesa may be, concern for Mikelle Biggs grows from hour to hour. Although one of the largest search operations in Arizona's history began immediately, the girl remained missing. Nobody had heard or seen anything. No one could explain how Mikelle could have disappeared in such a small area in the middle of a residential neighborhood in such a short period of time. The investigators followed many leads. Some of them led them to the state of Pennsylvania and even across the Mexican border. More than 10,000 tips from the public were received. Police record over 800 leads. But Mikelle Biggs seems to have vanished into thin air. Nevertheless, a suspect is identified relatively quickly. Her own father. According to American authorities, family members are responsible for more than 90% of missing persons cases. It is therefore only logical that Mikelle Biggs's family is also being scrutinized. The police have no other leads, so focusing on the family is the only way to make any progress. The investigators quickly focus in particular on her father, Darian Biggs. Darian Biggs's statements and alibis are checked particularly meticulously. The police are all the more puzzled when it turns out that Darian has lied to the investigators. In the first interrogations, he said that he was at work when his wife called him and reported Mikelle's disappearance. However, it quickly turns out that this is a lie. Darian was not at work, but at a friend's house. The press gets wind of the story and soon finds out that Darian Biggs is having an affair. He is said to have told his wife about this about a month before Mikelle's disappearance. Fueled by the news of the affair, the press and outsiders begin to speculate. Speculation arises as to whether Darian might have something more to hide. For example, involvement in the disappearance of his own daughter. Darian volunteers to take a lie detector test at the FBI to dispel the suspicions against him once and for all. But the attempt backfires because Darian fails the lie detector test. However, that does not necessarily mean that he is guilty. It could also be due to the particular emotional situation he was in at the time. This is one of the reasons why lie detector tests are no longer recognized in court. And he really is in a difficult situation. After all, not only has his daughter disappeared without a trace, but he is also suspected of being responsible. Even police officers admit that this extraordinary situation could be the reason why Darian failed the test. When Darian learned that the test results were inconclusive, he told reporters, "That doesn't surprise me, I thought as much, because they said I was too angry." So the FBI agents also pointed out to Darian that the test result could be inaccurate. Nevertheless, Darian Biggs was placed under police surveillance for a year. Only then will the suspicions against the family man be dropped. After extensive reconstructions, the investigators have come to the conclusion that it would have been impossible for Darian, both in terms of time and location, to have let his daughter Mikelle disappear that day. Moreover, there is no motive that could somehow support his alleged guilt. This will hardly have been a moment of satisfaction for the Biggs family. Because the police focused so much on her father at the beginning of the search for Mikelle, valuable time may have been lost. With each passing day, it seems as if the search for the little girl is becoming more hopeless.
Jump to conclusions in my family's situation, and that made the whole thing that much harder. It's really hard not to feel bitter about that. I mean, not only for my dad's sake, but for the case's sake, for Mikelle's sake. What if? There's always going to be that what if. What if we miss something because of that?
The police have to reopen the investigation. The approach with Mikelle's father Darian was obviously not the right one. For a short time, there was another suspect who was reported by his own daughter. His identity was never made public. The man was accused of abusing his own granddaughter a few months after Mikelle's disappearance. When he was charged, he took his own life. He had previously told his relatives that there had been more victims and that he would write their names on a list. But that never happened. The man died, and if there were other victims, he took their identities with him to the grave as secrets. His daughter lives not far from the Biggs family and tells the police that she can imagine that her father might have had something to do with Mikelle's disappearance. Her father visited her at the time of the crime. Between the afternoon and evening of January 2nd, 1999, he was driving. When asked what he had done during that time, he's said to have replied that he had gotten lost. And this despite the fact that he was actually quite familiar with this area of Mesa. His daughter considers this to be an excuse. The period of time during which the man was missing matches the period of time during which Mikelle Biggs was abducted. The deceased man's house is searched, as is his car. But no trace of Mikelle is found. And so the suspicion against the deceased is dropped. Nevertheless, the investigators believe that an unknown culprit has kidnapped Mikelle. Mikelle must have been trying to run away from someone. Otherwise, she would hardly have carelessly thrown her bike and the money for the ice cream cart on the street. Police locate and question every single ice cream vendor in Arizona, consult with psychics, and search more than 35 abandoned mines. Unfortunately, all to no avail. Mikelle Biggs remains missing. Investigators believe that the solution may not be too far away. After all, Mikelle was abducted in the middle of a quiet residential neighborhood. Tracking dogs were able to pick up Mikelle's scent, but lost it after a few meters. The crime spree was unusually short, lasting no more than 90 seconds. The perpetrator most likely used a getaway vehicle, perhaps one that wouldn't attract attention in the neighborhood because the residents know the vehicle. So the police are looking for possible suspects in the neighborhood where Mikelle lives. It turns out that the idyllic, quiet neighborhood is not what it seems.
These are all these dots indicate known settlers who were living.
Well, it's within a mile radius of the house.
That's a lot of settlers. Were you surprised at the number of settlers living in this neighborhood where there were so many young kids?
I was.
If you're my neighbor and I see that you're living next to me and I see something suspicious going on, I guarantee you, I'll be calling 911.
This man's name is Dee Blalock. He lives not far from the Biggs family. He lives near the house where Mikelle has regular piano lessons. Mikelle's best friend lives right around the corner from him. He, like so many in the neighborhood, is helping in the search for the 11-year-old girl. He even takes part in a few vigils for the missing girl. But the man who presents himself as a helpful and dedicated neighbor has a second, much darker life.
He apparently was at candlelight vigils and stuff that we had for her, but it was when he attacked his neighbor, Susan Quinnett, that's when he got on the radar.
Like Blalock, a woman named Susan Quinnett lives in the residential area in Mesa where Mikelle Biggs disappeared in 1999. 21 months after the mysterious disappearance, the neighborhood is shaken by a serious crime. Susan is attacked by a man in her own home and severely abused. The culprit can be caught quickly because she survives the attack by a hair's breadth.
He was hiding behind the refrigerator and had his pants up, and he was exposing himself to me, and I was, "Mr. Blalock, what are you doing in here?" And I tried to take a few steps, and he already had come forward and grabbed me and twisted my arm and started forcing me to the ground. He beat me, he tried to snap my neck 3 times. He did successfully break it in one place. He put me in a hold until I gave over and I fainted.
He left her unconscious and seriously injured. By doing so, he accepted the fact that Susan would die. The fact that she regained consciousness is nothing short of a miracle. She managed to scream for help. An ambulance was called and took the seriously injured woman directly to the hospital. While she is still in the ambulance and the emergency doctors are treating her, Susan has a flash of inspiration. She keeps saying a name to the emergency doctors: Mikelle Biggs. She is certain after the attack by Blalock that he must be her abductor. The close proximity, the extreme brutality, and the absolute ruthlessness lead Susan to the conclusion that her attacker must also be the girl's abductor. And indeed, Blalock has a number of relevant criminal records for several sex offenses. He doesn't appear to have a classic pattern, but acts opportunistically. He strikes when the opportunity spontaneously presents itself. How he selects his victims and how he proceeds is completely arbitrary. Accordingly, Blalock fits the perpetrator profile for the Mikelle Biggs case well. The police question him very early on about the girl's disappearance. But his wife and sister give him an alibi. Blalock was at home the whole evening of Mikelle's disappearance, watching the football game like so many others. Nevertheless, his house is searched. Without result. Blalock was sentenced to more than 100 years in prison for the attack on Susan. It is highly unlikely that he will ever leave prison again. When he was in prison for Susan's crime, Dee Blalock's wife made new statements. Apparently, she dared to say more now that her husband was in prison. She says that he was watching the football game in his garage on the evening of January 2nd. She says that she wanted to bring him some sandwiches during the game. When she knocked, he didn't open the door and just shouted at her to go away. Dee's wife can't say with absolute certainty what her husband was doing in the garage. This opens up a whole new possibility for the police. What if Blalock wasn't just watching the football game in the garage, but might have kidnapped Mikelle Biggs and brought her there? When Blalock is initially targeted by investigators, the Biggs family is hopeful. Mikelle's parents, Darian and Tracy, even try to make contact with him personally. They are desperate to find out whether he is behind their daughter's disappearance.
We had written to him several times.
Saying what?
Asking him flat out, did you do it? And I told him, if I'm wrong, I won't be able to do enough to apologize to you, because that's a terrible thing to be accused of. I know wherever I speak. I literally have been there. But I don't care, you know, if I have to accuse a million different people till I find the right one.
In fact, Blaylock is replying to letters from Mikelle's parents. In the meantime, he is said to have confessed to a fellow inmate that he kidnapped Mikelle Biggs. But that is only hearsay. Not only the police, but also Mikelle's parents want to hear for themselves what Blaylock has to say. When he replies to the letter from Darian and Tracy, the two are very surprised. Blaylock writes that he has to set the record straight with him and the family. Blaylock even agrees to a visit from Darian and Tracy Biggs in prison.
What did you ask him?
Where he was, what he was doing, why he did it. He just denied. He got mad a couple times. I don't know why everybody's harassing me, blah, blah, blah. I never
He didn't
did
walk
this.
away.
No, he never did.
He
never
never
did.
walked away.
You know, he could have set the phone down and told the guard to let him out of that little room. He never did. He sat there and talked to us for an hour and a half.
As we were walking away, I remember telling Darren, I think he did it.
The problem is that Blaylock is considered a pathological liar. His behavior also switches almost every minute when he talks to the Biggs. Sometimes it seems as if he's about to confess to kidnapping Mikelle. Then he changes his mind again and shows outrage at their accusations. So far, D. Blaylock has not confessed to kidnapping Mikelle Biggs. He fits the perpetrator profile, and his behavior towards the relatives is undoubtedly strange. But without a full confession on his part, it will probably never be possible to prove that he kidnapped the girl, unless someone were to find a trace of Mikelle. Her sister Kimba herself says she doesn't believe Mikelle is still alive. Nevertheless, 19 years after the disappearance, there is a moment of hope. On March 14th, 2018, a man turns up at a police station in Nianna, Wisconsin. He has a dollar bill with him that he found. On it is written, "My name is Mikelle Biggs, kidnapped from Mesa. I'm alive." It could never be determined where the dollar bill came from or why someone would write a message on it using Mikelle's name. As things stand, it is assumed that this clue was unfortunately just a tasteless joke. As stated, the fact that Mikelle is still alive after more than 20 years is unfortunately very unlikely. Since the culprit must have acted very spontaneously, the police do not believe that he had a sophisticated hiding place for the girl. Nevertheless, not even a single trace of Mikelle Biggs has ever been found. The only comfort for Mikelle's family is the room of the missing 11-year-old. Her family has left her room exactly as Mikelle left it. All of her personal belongings and drawings of her favorite Disney characters are still there. Darian, Mikelle's mother, and her little sister Kimba often retreat to the room to feel close to Mikelle. When her sister Mikelle was kidnapped, Kimba Biggs was just 9 years old. Today, she is a grown woman. She has never completely lost her concern for her sister. Kimba is now an activist herself, fighting for better communication between the relatives of missing children and the American police. Kimba works for the National Criminal Justice Training Center, where she gives courses on how to deal with relatives to 911 call center employees and police officers. Although the Biggs family's life was destroyed on January 2, 1999, they never gave up. To this day, Mikelle's disappearance is regularly covered in the American media. The case seems to have never completely left society, especially in Arizona. And as long as cases like Mikelle Biggs remain in people's minds, there will always be hope. And that's the end of today's video. I hope to be able to show you the resolution of this case at some point. Do you think that the police are suspecting the right person with D. Blaylock? Or do you think that it is possible that Mikelle is still alive today? I'm curious to hear what you have to say about the case. feel free to leave me a comment. And if you like the video and would like to support Insolito, you can leave a like and a subscription next to the comment. The latter in particular helps the channel a lot, because this way the video gets a lot of interaction shortly after the upload, and that increases the probability that the video will be suggested to people who have not yet subscribed to Insolito. Thank you in advance. Otherwise, there's not much more to say. I wish you a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you watch the video, and hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, bye guys.